Today is April 27th, 2020. My name is Byron, and this is Thinking Aloud, a little vlog thing I've been doing since the beginning of the stay-in orders, just to give myself a little something extra to do. So I guess thanks for tuning in, and well, it would be nice to be able to say thanks for tuning in, but I know basically no one is watching this, which kind of sucks, because you look at all this work that you put in. I think this is my 14th one now, and it's like, well, I know I'm doing this. My question is, how long does it take in order for anyone to even, like, remotely touch it? I've gotten a few comments, but I can tell that they're from channels that specifically are the ones that are like, hey, sub to me, and they're basically trying to make a YouTube channel that has a ton of subscribers without any videos. Like, that happens, and that kind of bugs me. I find that practice to be a little underhanded, because the whole point of a subscription on a video platform is for the videos, right? So what exactly do you do with something like that other than for the clout? Maybe you sell it to some kind of investor, but then that's just like, well, you didn't really earn any of those subscriptions, you know? People just kind of gave you them of their, what would be the word, their goodwill. So I'm not quite sure what that practice is supposed to accomplish. Maybe there's something I don't understand about it, but my guesses are it somehow makes you money, or they're just doing it for bragging rights. Either case, I think it's kind of underhanded and insincere. I don't like that kind of thing. But back to the whole, nobody's really interacting with it. I understand why that happens, because there's so much content that's created over the course of, you know, a ridiculous amount of time. Well, not even a ridiculous amount of time. A very short amount of time. There's a ridiculous amount of content in a very short amount of time. So people tend to get fed the content that they're already used to watching. There's already previously established people who tend to get their stuff promoted because they're already established, right? This is just the way the world works. It's the rule of selection, or pre-selection, or something like that. It happens in all kinds of things. Even in dating, for example, the number one factor in, for example, for whether or not a man or woman will have another romantic partner is if they've already had a romantic partner. You know, like that's actually data, and I don't think it's even just romantic partner. It's sexual partner specifically, but that's neither here nor there. The point is that the way that you get something is to already have some of it. It's just like this strange rule of the world. It's like that with money. You want more money, you have to have some money in order to invest, in order to get money. You want clout. Well, you need a little bit of clout in order to get a lot of clout, right? It doesn't just happen poof, out of nowhere, right? Usually you have some kind of outlet or some kind of some degree of it beforehand, so that it doesn't go from zero to way up there. It's much less steep of a climb. Even if it's just like 50 or 20, right? That's more than zero. It's more than nothing, right? So it's just this very strange quality of the world and the way it works, and how all of these things come together. And I think that if you really want to build systems that help people who are literally starting from scratch, they're at a huge disadvantage because of this just basic rule of the way things work. I think it has some, and another thing to look into with regards to this is the Pareto distribution. It's like 80% of things created in a productive, what's the word? Domain, I guess it would be. Yeah, so in any productive domain, like 80% of the stuff is produced by roughly 20% of the people. And and because of that, it means that there's just a very small group of people who collect the majority of the consequences for the action in question. It's a very, very strange thing. But in the case of something like YouTube, a platform like this, it kind of bugs me that even though we know that these are phenomenon that exist, there isn't any kind of like newcomers page or any way to just like view things that don't have a lot of traction already. I find that very strange. It is very, very hard to find things that aren't already established on the platform. And I think it would be nice if platforms like YouTube and other platforms that deal in these kinds of creative measures really, really focused on giving people ways to promote themselves on the platform, or even just find more organic reach, right? So one of the ways that you can do that now is that you can build tokens into your platform and use those as a kind of currency for buying exposure. And I think that's a perfectly fine system, because if you get even just a little bit of views, then you can turn that into a little bit more exposure, right? And like my first video is something like, I think it's over 10 views now, and those aren't all mine. It's been a couple people. It's been a fair few people. I think maybe two or three of them was me, just to kind of like make sure that all the settings were correct and that I've watched through it and I was satisfied with it as kind of like my flagship video, I guess. But whatever. I really do wish that platforms would make more ways for people who are starting out fresh to have more, to let other people have more accessibility to them. I think that would be more interesting, because like everybody likes the underdog story. They like the rising star narrative, you know? And I don't understand why that kind of thing isn't facilitated. It's something that's kind of, anyone who joins a platform like this for that kind of thing is, well, everybody knows that kind of pattern, right? That trope. And there are many, many people who go out of their way to try to live that scenario, right? And I don't understand why, if everybody who's on the platform knows about that and understands how it happens and likes that kind of narrative, why wouldn't the platforms themselves facilitate it? That just doesn't make any sense to me. Now, obviously, there are problems with that, because you don't want just anybody rising to prominence. Now, do you? But, I think that's kind of the magic of a platform like YouTube. It should be one where just anybody could rise to prominence. That's why it's the name YouTube, right? It's us. We're the ones who become the entertainment. We're the ones who become the face of the platform. And obviously the corporate overlords of the platform really don't understand that. It's fairly obvious that they don't. It's sad. Like they just need different leadership. Their priorities are messed up. I have a video about that. You can go watch that. Leadership and priorities. Yep. Um, but overall, I just really wish that people who had the people who have some resources and aren't really concerned with attaining more would use their time and effort to give other people opportunities to do that. And like that's a perfectly fine idea. It's when you cross over from giving people better conditions that are conducive to this instead of restricting it, right? Just more organic ways of it happening. In comparison to kind of a contrived way of it happening, right? Which is where I think a lot of people come down on this idea and say it's a bad thing, right? I don't think more opportunity is bad. Like just in general for basically anyone really. But obviously opportunities are limited by means, and if, for example, if you only have $1,000, the opportunities that you have is limited by the amount of things that can be purchased under $1,000. Anything worth more than $1,000 is not available to them, right? They do not have the opportunity to purchase that, for example. So even opportunity itself, it isn't necessarily the right word. It's like, I don't know how to describe it. It's difficult to really wrap your head around this, but like, I think people understand the general gist that there are tendencies to gatekeep, right? It's you're not allowed to use this and get ahead on this, right? And then there's also tendencies to promote things in a contrived manner, right? And that's where this idea tends to run up against people, and it kind of rubs them wrong. Because you can tell if someone was organically reached some kind of prominence, or if they were kind of brought there in a contrived way. You can tell, because like the way that they act, the way that they think, the way that they work in regards to those things are just totally incompatible with a sustainable program, right? Because the people who actually had to work from the bottom and get to the top organically, they actually had to learn how to make that a sustainable system, right? How they could add more value over time to what they're working with. But the people who are just brought in and put on the pedestal and say, here you go, they can't keep it organically. So when all of the things that are propping them up are taken away, they just fall, right? Because they don't have the capacity to keep themselves there. Do you see what I mean? It's just weird to me that people would ever think that that's a viable solution to creating prominence or prosperity. It just has to be sustainable. And I'm getting like way off where I was originally going with this, I guess. But just in general, I think that the story of the underdog, the story of the rising star, these are things that people aspire to. They're things that people admire. They're things that they're kind of heroic story tales, and people look up to these things because they want them reflected in their own lives. Like, they understand this stuff. The question is whether or not the powers that be make those things conducive, right? That's the gatekeepy thing. Or whether or not the people themselves can get there under the conditions, in relatively non-gatekeepy conditions, and have the capacity and the potential for that kind of thing. So it's kind of, it's both, right? It's not one or the other. Obviously, there's institutional problems, and then there's also individual problems, because as soon as the institutions stop working for the people, if that person is not fit for the environment that the institution has built for them, they will flounder. And if the institutions are keeping people who would otherwise be fit for the conditions that they would normally promote, then people get angry because it's like, clearly this person is a good fit. So I don't know. It's just random thoughts, general musings. I wasn't even planning on talking about that today, but I guess that's what I talked about today. So I don't know. I don't even know what I'm going to title this video. Yeah, that's where I was going with that. Yeah. Pretty interesting stuff. I don't know. There's just a lot to think about and unpack and all of that, and I really wish that I could spend more time doing it. I've got so much going on, but you know, I'm feeling a little better. I took Sunday off yesterday. I wasn't feeling very well for a little while there, but I'm feeling better today. I'm just gonna kind of keep monitoring my situation, drink more water, go from there. That's all you really can do. I have no idea. In any case, I think that's about good for this video. I'm gonna pack it in. Thanks for watching, if you did. And I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.